एक ही जगह पर नहीं आ सकती मुझे, but nevertheless. So is that okay? Good morning. What happened? So I would like to have your undivided attention. Maybe we can have our phones in the bags. Okay. I don't need you to, I don't need to tell you this, but I would want your undivided attention. So thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. We are going to talk about ethics and integrity in research. I am Snober. I am Professor and Head Department of Biosciences, Integral University, Lucknow. And the objective of having this research course curriculum on ethics and integrity in research is to make you understand and make you sensitize you towards the guidelines that govern responsible conduct of research. And the objectives of this course are, we'll come to the objectives, but I would like to start my lecture with the wordings of this very famous scientist, Einstein. Everybody knows him, right? He says that many people say that it's the intellect which makes a great scientist, right? We also believe that, we also say that, okay, that person is a genius, this person is very intellectual, right? But according to the most, highly intellectual person, Einstein himself, he says that many people say that it's the intellect which makes a great scientist. They are wrong. It's their professional character, right? It's their character, it's their professional ethics, it's the ethics that they follow, it's their professional character that makes them great, right? Everybody has some kind of uniqueness, everybody has some kind of talent, everybody is a genius, okay, in their own world, in their own terms. Somebody or the other may have a unique talent, right? So they are geniuses, but what puts them apart, what makes them famous? What makes them famous? Their professional character, right? So we have to give a lot of emphasis on professional character. Starting with his words, the genesis of having this class, earlier when we were students, we were not taught research publication and ethics as a structure, right? We were aware of ethical practices. I would not say that, ethical practices started just now. We were aware of all the ethical practices, but we were not taught it as a structured class. So what was the genesis of this idea? The genesis of the idea was that a lot of irresponsible behavior was seen in publications. Irresponsible behavior in conduct of research was seen. So therefore, University Grants Commission in its 543rd meeting held on 9th August 2019 approved two credit course for awareness about publication ethics and publication misconduct, and it was entitled as Research in Publication Ethics. It was made compulsory for all PhD students for pre-registration coursework. This class is a translation of this framework. The framework was suggested by UGC itself. But why did they come up with this framework? Does anybody have an idea about why they were compelled? Why UGC was compelled to give this guideline? What happened during this time that UGC felt compelled that they need to have a compulsory course for PhD scholars. They felt compelled because these regulations were strongly required to raise standard of research and publication in India, right? to build trust in the research that was coming out of India. Okay? So were we lacking this trust earlier? Yes. Were we lacking this kind of trust? How many of you agree with me? Were we lacking trust in the research that was coming out of Indian labs? Or was it a perception that was built? Perception means, was it a kind of, image that was built for us?
We were lacking.
We were lacking. We have to be honest, right? We have to be honest. We cannot always blame the rest of the world for building this image, right? Somewhere we were lacking. We were sending out research which was mostly trustworthy, but maybe few labs were sending out research which was not worth of trust, right? So UGC evaluated these things and they were compelled to give us these regulations which were strongly required to raise the standard of research and publication in India. So it was required. Okay. The term research integrity has not been defined in the regulations. Okay. This point is important. UGC has not used the term research integrity in its regulations, but they have used the term academic integrity. What does academic integrity mean? It means the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity. What kind of activity? Any activity that is academic in nature. So research activities are also academic activities, because when you do research, when you design a research proposal, you are creating knowledge. You know? Are we creating knowledge? Yes. When we do research, are we creating knowledge? Yes, yes, we are creating knowledge. We are understanding the pre-designed, pre-adjusted, research which has already been done. We are using the previous research for new creative understanding, for translation purposes, right? So we are building the entire research proposals on data which has already been in the pipeline earlier, right? So therefore, all academic activities, although UGC has not used the term research integrity, but they have used the term academic integrity to mean the intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property, right? The more intellectual property that we create, will be monetizing on it, will become the knowledge economy. And we want to become knowledge economy by 2047. In fact, our vision 2030 is that we should be the knowledge economy, and that will all come from research and honest research. Okay? All right? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay, you have to be interactive. So the term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which means character. Research ethics can be described as a set of moral principles that a researcher should follow to conduct research in a responsible manner. In many countries, we have Office of the Responsible Conduct of Research. In our university, we also have the Dean's Office, Dean Research and Development, who take care of all the practices that are required for ensuring that whatever research is coming out of Integral University, it has been conducted in the most responsible manner, right? Now we need to define what is responsible, right? When we say that responsible conduct of research, what does this term responsible mean? All right, okay. So academic research, as you all know, involves many coordinated steps, right? Any kind of research. By now you have already completed research methodology and you must be having a good, fair idea of what are the parts of a good research proposal. What are they? So a research proposal, any academic research starts from hypothesis, you know? Yes? Hypothesis, appropriate study design, appropriate study execution. You will know what are the methodologies that you require for executing your work. Data collection, right? Reporting of the data, management of the data. That is also one step where you have to be very cautious and very responsible. Data analysis, and finally publication, right? This is a kind of a life cycle. It's a life cycle of a research proposal. You start with the problem, you design a methodology, you get data based upon that methodology, you analyze it, you report it, and then finally you disseminate this piece of research in the form of a publication or maybe a patent or some prototype. In some cases, it may be a prototype for colleagues from humanities or for colleagues from other disciplines. The results may come out as a policy document, isn't it? So every time research dissemination cannot be in the form of a publication only, it can be in the form of a policy document maybe. So therefore all the steps have to be conducted within a framework. And who gives us this framework? There are many bodies which gives us the framework of how we have to conduct responsible research, right? So what are the steps? Which steps are, sorry, just a minute, just going fast. So these are the 5 coordinated steps. These are the points in your mind as a researcher. You and your supervisor, they should always have a checklist in their mind. All right, they should always have a checklist in their mind. So if your mind is too cluttered, so it's a good idea to make an actual physical checklist, put it on your table or in your copy, and make a checklist of whether those steps have been followed at every step. Okay, so you make a flow chart of these steps: hypothesis, appropriate study design, study execution, data collection, data reporting, data analysis, and publication. Make a chart of this, a tabular chart, right? That is how checklists are made, right? And then ask different questions to yourself. I'll tell you what questions you have to ask, right? So right now I'm just telling you that you have to have a checklist. It can be a mental checklist, it can be a physical checklist, but I would recommend a physical checklist where you are able to give a yes or a no of whether you have followed what you were supposed to follow in the previous step. Okay? So if the answer is no, you have to stop right there. Give yourself a pause. Think about how you can make corrective, measures, and move forward to the next step. All right. That is the idea of having this checklist. Okay. Is it making sense? All right. So one should be aware. So for having this checklist, one should be very aware of what are the code of conducts. What is the code of conduct that you have to follow, right? For example, we have already made the checklist, but we should be aware of what we have to follow, isn't it? So those questions we'll be getting from the code of conduct. So one should be very aware of ethical code of conduct that binds researchers at every step, right? I told you 5 steps, right? I have told you that you have 5 major steps in your research plan. Now you should be knowing that what are the ethical questions that you have to answer for every step, right? So at every one should be aware of ethical code of conduct that binds researchers at every step. So who gives us these code of conduct? The Committee on Publication Ethics. There are many bodies, right? There are many bodies that give you this code of conduct, right? We majorly follow Committee on Publication Ethics, which you know as COPE. All of us know it as COPE. COPE, Committee on Publication Ethics. So Committee on Publication Ethics is an international forum for editors and publishers of peer-reviewed journals. How many of you are aware of journals? When I say a journal, when I use this word journal, what do you understand? What is it? Like, what is this journal?
It consists of
Research papers are published.
Yeah, it's a platform. It's a highly accomplished, well-renowned, indexed collection of papers, right? Where you would disseminate your work so that everybody else gets to know what work you're doing, what are the new results that you have obtained, and they will design their work based on your work, right? So obviously you would want to publish your work in a good indexed journal, right? When we say peer-reviewed journals, we mean indexed journals, like indexed in Web of Science or Scopus, a good journals, right? High impact journals, right? Q1, Q2, and all that stuff. So, Committee on Publication Ethics is an international forum of editors and publishers of these peer-reviewed journals, and they have given us the ethical code of conduct. Scope guidelines provide the code of conduct and best practice guidelines, best practices, right? Good practices. In the context of lab, we say good lab practices. In the context of manufacturing, we say good manufacturing practices, right? In the context of, say, humanities, we talk about best practices. So, COPE is giving us guidelines. Guidelines means it's an advisory, it's not a regulation, it's not a law, it's an advisory that we should follow. And if we are not following it, there will be some penalties, right? Okay? So these best practice guidelines define publication ethics. Am I audible? Am I audible? Yeah, now I can hear my voice. So, COPE guidelines provides a code of conduct and best practice guidelines that define publication ethics and advises editors on how to handle cases of research and publication misconduct. So, COPE guidelines do not give guidelines just for the researchers. They also give guidelines for the reviewers. They give guidelines for the editors on to how to handle cases of misconduct. Misconduct is wherever the research has been reported or carried out in an irresponsible manner. There are other bodies too. So I had talked about many other bodies. So ethics related organizations and their role. The organizations involved with publication ethics are International Committee of Medical Journals, editors, ICMJ. Okay, ICMJ. This is mostly, they take care of biomedical research, the research that is coming out of clinics, maybe from hospitals or from psychologists or wherever we are using human subjects. It's not like human subjects are only used in clinic-based research. Human subjects are also used in surveys, right? So maybe a person from management may be carrying out a research on human subjects to understand their behavior, maybe to understand customer behavior. So that is also a part of research proposal that will come under ethical guidelines. Okay? Okay? Are you awake? Looks like you are awake. Fine. Okay. Uh, so ICMJE, this was established in 1978 in Vancouver, British Columbia by a group of medical journals editors. Then we have WAME, World Association of Medical Editors. It's a non-profit voluntary association which was established in 1995 by a group of members of ICMJE, because most of the research at that point of time was carried out in biomedical field and biology, life sciences, and medicine. That is why the ethical guidelines were more concentrated on biomedical research. But as we evolved, as the ambit of research evolved, and the research became interdisciplinary. Like in this class itself, we have so many. Right now I think we have around 90 odd students. They're all from different fields, right? So the guidelines have to be universal for everybody. They should be similar for a person from humanities, they should be similar for a person from sciences. So we evolved from Wayne, we reached to Co. Now we are following Co. It's not like that we are not following the other two bodies. They are also watchdogs. They are looking after whether the research is being carried out responsibly or not. But we follow the guidelines from Committee on Publication Ethics. It's a registered charity organization for journal editors and publishers. I have already talked about it. It started in the year 1997 as an informal forum of editors. Now you have to understand the power of citizens, right? They were not trained people. I mean, they were not trained to do all this kind of detective work. We call these people as science sleuths, science detectives. Do you know why we call them science detectives or sleuths? Why do you think we are calling them as detectives?
Errors in our research and
They analyzed, they went they did some retrospective work. They looked at papers which were published previously over a period of time, and they analyzed that data, and based upon their analysis, they figured out that there are some malpractices going on in reporting of data and other design of research proposals. They were able to figure out that some areas are not being addressed. For example, the data reporting is not correct. Maybe the data they figured out that the data is falsified or fabricated. So this was a group of three people. It was not a big group. They started with three editors, and they started with just random analysis of papers, and they figured out that irresponsible behavior in research is quite rampant. And now we have it as a big organization, and this is the power of honest citizens. Okay, so it's not like 100 people may be indulging in dishonesty, but even if two or three people are honest in that cohort, they can make a difference. All right, fine. The mission of COPE and these three editors, what was their mission? Their mission was to create a future in which ethical practice in scholarship is the cultural norm. Okay? Honesty is a culture. Dishonesty is also a culture, right? And you are associated with it. Nationalities are associated with that, right? Isn't it? We, judge people by their, conduct, which we should not do actually, but we do it, right? Similarly, we also get judged, right? Because we may have done the research in a proper manner, but because we maybe, the perception around us may be like that, so we'll get judged. Okay, so what was the mission of COPE? What was the mission of COPE?
To promote research.
To create a future, to create a culture of honesty. Their future, their mission was to create a future in which ethical practice in scholarship is the cultural norm. And to build a culture, you have to hammer, right? You have to hammer. It does not come organically. You have to sensitize people. You have to make people. You have to create a partnership, right? Right now, we are creating this partnership. Okay, we are creating this partnership with this class of so many research scholars. Do you agree with me?
yes, ma'am.
We are creating this partnership to build a culture of ethical practice, right? Practice which will percolate. When you will become supervisors, you will be that honest supervisor who will train the student in the proper manner. Okay, so we also want to build ethical practice as a cultural norm, just like COPE. Why the guidelines were developed? I told you why. The reason for every why is the same, because malpractice was very rampant and it had to be stopped. It had to be stopped. Why it had to be stopped? Why this malpractice had to be stopped?
For good researchers,
For
good researchers to come up.
okay.
The belief in research was lacking at that time.
So the belief, somebody said that so that we could build upon good research. That's an important point. We are not starting de novo. Every research proposal that we design does not start de novo. It starts on some previously designed work. It starts from some data that has come from previous studies. So obviously, if we are designing an entire research proposal on somebody else's data, that data needs to be robust. That needs to be true, right? So one falsehood would cascade into multiple falsehoods. Your proposal may be based upon your research PhD thesis, for example. You are here, let's not talk about the big picture right now. Let's talk about your PhD thesis. Now you will be designing your PhD thesis, isn't it? So what would you do? What is the first step that you would do?
First we
You choose a problem, right? And that problem would be based upon something similar, and you would want to build upon the data that was previously reported, and then you would design some other idea related to that data. So if that primary data is questionable, would your research give us any result? No. So this is the main reason why we should not be irresponsible while reporting research data. Okay? Because so many other people are trusting your work. They are designing their own work based upon your results, right? Okay. So the COPE was founded in 1997 to address breaches of research and publication ethics, and it was essential to attempt to define best practice in ethics of scientific publication. The guidelines were developed from a preliminary version drafted by individual members, and now it covers mostly entire 5 points that I had talked about earlier. It covers study design, it covers ethical approval, it covers data analysis, it covers authorship, conflict of interest, peer review process, redundant publications, plagiarism. It talks about duties of editors. It talks about media relations. It talks about how you should advertise. So it's a comprehensive advisory. It's a comprehensive advisory for supervisors. It's a comprehensive advisory for research scholars, for peer reviewers, for funding agencies, for editors, and so on and so forth. So it's comprehensive in its own self. So if you just go to the COPE website, which you have to, not because you are studying RP, because you plan to publish your work, so you should go to COPE website, and to also be updated. Research scholars need to be updated. They cannot be like the home buddies who are not aware. You cannot live in an island. All right. Why am I talking about an island? You cannot be isolated. You have to be updated, right? Okay, you have to be updated about what COPE is upgrading. Now we are in an era of AI, right? So the COPE guidelines cannot be the same what they were 5 years back. So today you cannot say, okay, I was not aware of what the guidelines for AI were, or the usage of AI were, right? I cannot say that. If I have made research as my career, I cannot say that I was not aware what the guidelines are today. Okay, so you have to keep yourself abreast with whatever guidelines are getting changed, and you don't have to go to multiple sites. Just go to COPE website. Okay, what is COPE? Committee of Publication Ethics. What is the body about? This body is an ethical organization that has given us the advisory. It has given us the set of guidelines for ethical code of conduct in responsible conduct of research. That is the summary of it all, right? And it governs every step of academic research, starting from hypothesis, study design, data collection, data reporting, data analysis, finally publication. All right? Is that clear? Fine. So guidance documents cover code of conduct and best practice guidelines for journal editors. We have talked about it. Code of conduct for journal publishers, guidelines for the board of directors of learned society journals. Learned society journals. So I would just give you a short, assignment. Find the society journal, a good, esteemed, learned society journal in your own domain. Your domains are different. So find the society journal in your own domain. That would be today's question for you, right? So when we meet again, I should have the answer for this question. Okay, it's important. Yeah.
Ma'am, is there any data we can find over internet the list of some kind of such kind of journals
Yeah.
which are COPE certified.
Yes, you can find them. Claire, you must have heard about Clarivate Analytics. Okay, SciWare. It consists of the list of journals which are good journals, which are respectable journals. And then you have another list. We'll talk about that during the course of our lectures. But since you have asked this question, I would like to answer it right away. Then we have another list which is called as Beale's list. You may write it down right away. It's called the Beale's list. Beale's list and Cabell's list. Beale's list talks about all those journals where you should not publish. Beale's list talks about all those journals where you should not publish. They are predatory journals. We'll talk about all those journals later on.
And ma'am, one more in our discuss is
Yeah.
that is some discussion about the
Mhm.
uses of AI, ethical uses of AI, because
Yes.
we are current day debating there, and we are facing as a research scholars, we are in this phase, which is not.
I understand your sentiment. And during the course of my talk, my course content, maybe in the fourth lecture, I'll be talking about ethical use of AI too. So how much percentage and how it's detected, we'll talk about that later, in probably in the fourth lecture or the sixth lecture.
Because there are some huge transformations are going on.
Yes, we understand that, and that is why I told you that we have to be updated. In today's world, today I have to talk about what are the problems that we are facing today. So we'll talk about that. Thank you for the suggestion. I have already included that. Thank you. So, code of conduct for journal publishers, all right, guidelines for board of directors. So, I have already given you the question. So, I think you'll come with the answer maybe tomorrow or some other day. Ethical guidance for peer reviewers. So, who are peer reviewers? These are people who would review your piece, research work and would, give you suggestions on improvement of this work on your study design before publication, right? We send papers for peer review, they get rejected. They do not get rejected randomly, they get rejected because there is maybe they may find a flaw in your study design, so you get opportunity to correct that flaw and you can resubmit to the same journal or maybe to some other journal. Okay, I'll come to you later on. Guidance on cooperation between research institutions and journals. So COPE also gives you guidance on ethical collaboration. Okay, we collaborate. We live in an era where we are conducting interdisciplinary research, right? A physicist and a biologist can work together, right? A computer scientist and a biologist can work together. A chemist, biologist, and a pharmacist can work together, right? So we are in an era of interdisciplinary work. So we should be aware of what are the guidelines for ethical collaboration, where we do not hide the we do not hide the contribution of our collaborator. We have to acknowledge the contribution of the collaborator appropriately. So there are guidelines for collaboration too. Okay. Fine. So guidelines on cooperation between research institutions and journals, guidelines for retracting articles. Retraction happens when the research work is totally poor, and all the editors and reviewers and probably the authors have also not been able to answer the difficult questions. Okay. So in the end, if the publication is not found suitable, even after publication, the paper can get retracted. And this piece of work is then withdrawn from all databases. So there is a database for retracted articles also. We'll talk about that later on. Okay. Fine. So we have guidelines for everything on the COPE, in the COPE document. And then discussion documents, for example, anonymous whistleblowing. What do you, how many of you understand whistleblowing? Whistleblowing.
The person who exposed the paragraph in an
Yeah, I mean, there would be some people who are not, comfortable with conducting research in an inappropriate manner. So they may, report it to COPE that, okay, this piece of work is not done ethically, right? The human subjects who were part of the study, their consent had not been taken. This is just an example that I'm giving you. So there may be people who report it to the agencies. They are your whistleblowers. So there are guidelines for whistleblowing also. Okay, fine.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this was all about what the authorities are saying or what the committees are saying. But actually, as a researcher, why I should conduct my research responsibly is because it's important for my integrity, right? It is important for what I'm, disseminating with other researchers. It builds trust. It's based upon truth. Any relationship which is not based upon truth is a futile relationship, right? We are building this relationship with other researchers, right? With an invisible community. All those people who are citing your work are invisible, right? Kind of invisible. They don't know you. They know you through your work. So if your work is not trustworthy, you are harming yourself, right? So integrity, truth, knowledge, trust, objectivity, values, societal good, and the orderly development of the society. So, right in the beginning, I had asked this question to my colleagues here that why have you chosen research as a career path? Many of you told me that because you were passionate about following research. Some of you have taken up this as a part of your career advancement, right? Isn't it? Because you want to build an identity for yourself, right? That identity has to be trustworthy. And you'll be spending at least 4 years of your life in your research thesis, at least four, maybe more, right? At least 4 years of your precious life, so you better do it in the right manner, isn't it? So that at the end of your 4 years, you'll be satisfied. Okay, I contributed. My contribution was small, but it was an honest contribution. Okay. So as the policy makers and the research that we are conducting there, that always has a societal impact. Does it have an impact? Good or bad? It has to have a good impact, right? Societal impact. Bad तो word ही नहीं use करेंगे हम. It has to have a societal impact, a good impact. We should be making lives easier for others, right? So our research has to be trustworthy. As the policy makers, researchers, students, and others may follow one's research, any data manipulation, plagiarism, incorrect or unsupported data, or any other unethical act may ultimately dent the image of the researcher and harm the society. Right? This is the big question. Your research thesis is a small contribution. I would not trivialize it so much, but just to simplify things for you, it is 4 years worth of your work, right? But you are starting out your career with this, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Some of you may have published earlier as PG students. Some of you may have published earlier because you have worked in research labs. But many of you may be publishing for the first time. So you're building the reputation for yourself. So obviously, I presume that you would want that reputation to be good, isn't it? You're not loud enough. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
So the top 5 reasons to publish ethically. These are the top 5 reasons to publish ethically. This is from Elsevier. The top 5 reasons to publish ethically are it ensures scientific progress. The second reason is that it protects life and the planet. We just talked about that research that is conducted in the labs is always for the societal benefit. It's not like that we are working in big pharma companies and all, for profit. We are working in academic setups, and we are, making these contributions at the cost of our own personal, time. Okay, so we are protecting life and the planet. It promotes ethical behavior. So bad behavior promotes bad behavior, good behavior promotes good behavior. So ethical behavior automatically promotes ethical behavior, right? So coming back to Coke mission, we wanted a culture of honesty in scholarship. You are all scholars. We don't call you students now, right? There's a reason. We call you scholars. Why? Because we want you always in we want all of you in a thought process most of the times, how you can contribute. So that is why you are scholars. You have to be updated with the literature that is coming out in your domains, right? So your scholarship, your reading has to be ethical too. Your dissemination of results has to be ethical. Dissemination means how you portray your results to the outer world, right? So it promotes ethical behavior. It's good for your reputation. I have talked about your reputation matters, and at this stage, I think it matters, and at every stage it matters. Honesty is still the best policy. Okay, and it's the only way. At the end of the day, all of you would realize. You may see that in the I would have quoted Jagjit Singh, but I forgot the lines. So pardon me for that. You may see that unethical behavior gives you faster success, but that success has no satisfaction, right? That success attained by falsehood will never give you satisfaction. And if it is giving you satisfaction, then there's some flaw within your own self, right?
Still,
हाँ जी
very good very.
हाँ जी बताएं.
Ma'am, where we will put other emotions also in ethical practices. Like we are talking about honesty, but there is fear also.
Yeah.
Fear of hiding truth. So
Yes.
because the falseness or falsehood is used or being practiced a lot of time to in a fear to hide the truth basically.
बिल्कुल.
Like in education system of India or in other countries, there are lots of faults, and the researchers are covered the current time are showing the results also. There are harmful practices even
Yeah.
at the end of out the level psychologically, socially, and professionally, students are harming. So these things. So, I just want to know.
Yes, fear is there.
Falsehood.
Yeah, you are bringing out some very pertinent questions, which I'm sure your other colleagues may. I mean, these questions may be crossing the minds of your other colleagues too. We would address these questions, these emotions of fear, publishing, and we have a culture of publish and perish. We have a culture where quantity is. We When we say we don't mean India, we don't mean our university. We talk about the global perspective, right? Okay, so we talk about everywhere where quantity is favored over quality. So yes, publish and perish culture is there. We'll come to that. Come to the factors why people kind of get forced to take the unethical route, right? But I would like to add a disclaimer here. No matter how much is the fear, right? No matter how much is the pressure, you should have that kind of, what do you say, strength, that kind of communication powers. Who is putting pressure on you? Maybe the supervisor, right? Or maybe your circumstances. So you can sit back. You have that luxury to sit back. We all have that luxury. We all have that choice. So we have to make that choice. Okay. So we'll talk about fear. We'll talk about publish and perish culture. We'll talk about all those confounding factors which are driving people towards taking the shorter cuts. Okay, but we have to be strong enough to communicate to the other body, okay, this is all right with me, this thing is not all right. Okay, we have to take that stand for our future generations. Okay. All right, we were talking about the checklist here. The gentleman here. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. I didn't ask your name actually. I have a practice of asking everybody's name at the end of the class. So we'll stick to that. Fine, thank you. All right, I was talking about the checklist. Do you remember the checklist? I was talking about the checklist right in the beginning of the talk. What was the checklist about?
Study checklist about study design collection.
Okay, it was a checklist which I had told you that you have to either keep it in a mental form or a physical form. This is the checklist that I was talking about. Publication ethics checklist, right? So authors may use checklists to ensure adherence to publication ethics. What are the factors? Approval and consent, data accuracy, plagiarism, submission fraud, ethics of authorship, conflict of interest, and many other points, right? So you can add or you cannot delete anything from it, okay? Because all these questions are important, you can add some more, depending upon your own understanding and discussion with your supervisors. That is why relationship between the mentor, your PhD supervisor, and your relationship as in the communication. The communication between the mentor and the student has to be very, very open. Okay? Very open as in, like, if you're not feeling like doing any lab work today, you should not feel bad about it. You should be able to discuss with your supervisor that today I want to focus on reading a paper. So that kind of trust has to be there, and this trust is built. This trust is built. Okay, you don't have to. I wish that all of you interact with your supervisors more. Build an understanding and work as a cohesive team. Cohesive team to get better results, which are good for your own health and for research too, right? Health, why? Because when you will work in a healthy environment, you will be able to think, objectively. You will be able to put in more efforts in your work, right? So if you're not feeling up to doing the lab work on a particular day, tell your supervisor, today I'll read a paper and I'll, discuss the paper with you maybe in the evening or in the afternoon. Fine? ठीक है? Open communication बहुत जरूरी है. It's 4 years of interaction. 4 years is the beginning, it's a lifetime of interaction because this supervisor will be there, will be having your back when you are independent researchers too, right? Okay? So वो relationship वो trust आप build करिए अपने supervisors के साथ, and for that it's very necessary that you communicate with them. It's not like in 3 months you are interacting with your supervisor. The supervisor does not know you. You do not know your supervisor. It does not work like that. You have to have a regular dialogue. So these are the questions. This side here talks about the questions. So if we talk about the first point, which talks about approval and consent, what are the questions that you have to ask yourself? Do you have approval of the relevant regulatory authorities, right? So you will either tick it yes or no. So if it's no, then you don't have to proceed further. You have to stop right there, go for the right kind of clearances, and then proceed with the design. All right. Have you registered your clinical trial? If yes, then you can proceed. If no, then you should again take a pause and go back and get the corrective things done. Data accuracy. So the most common malpractices are fabrication and falsification. So falsification and fabrication are two malpractices which are very rampant in data reporting and analysis. So what are the questions that you're asking yourself? Is there manipulation of material, equipment, processes, or data? Who are you asking this question? Yourself? And who else is asking this question?
Supervisor.
Supervisor. So actually the supervisor is equally responsible. Okay. Your supervisor, we cannot, leave the supervisor from this responsibility. This is the responsibility of both of you, your supervisor and yourself. Both of you have to ask these questions, you have to answer these questions honestly. So if the question, hopefully the answer to this question should be no. अरे, so गए sir. Is there manipulation of material? No. So you can proceed further. Is there manipulation of equipment? No. Your answer is no, right? Has to be no. Honesty has to be no. Okay? Fine. Then plagiarism and self-plagiarism. Have you used your own prior work or copied others' work? No. It should be an empathetic no. Yeah, you have not copied. So obviously you can proceed further. And there are tools where we can check whether you have copied or not, right? You may proceed, okay, no, I have not copied. Fine, I have copied only 40%. Let me go and send it for publication, right? But it doesn't work like that. We have tools to check how much you have copied from somebody else's work, right? And we'll get the report and we'll send you the paper back. But we have never had this kind of instances because we have a very robust manuscript routing procedure, manuscript communication procedure. Before you communicate any of your manuscript, your publication will go through the dean's office and it will already go through the checks and balances, and your publication can go through when it adheres to all the guidelines. Okay, so it's mandatory for all of you to take the manuscript communication number. It's called the MCN number. Okay, MCN, manuscript communication number. This you have to take from the dean's office, Dean Research and Development here at Integral University. All right. So your manuscript goes through a routing procedure. We check whether it's the right thing to go in the public domain, and then we send it. You send it, rather. Your supervisor sends it. Then we have to check whether we have committed submission fraud. What constitutes submission fraud? Submission fraud would mean that you have sent the paper. Now it has already gone through the checks and balances with us, right? Okay, your manuscript was ready for publication. You took the manuscript communication number. From where do you have to take this manuscript communication number? Dean Research, right? So you have taken that. Now the manuscript is with you, right? It's mandatory. All your PhD papers or papers which have an affiliation of Integral University have to go through the routing procedure. And this procedure has been done for your publication. Let's imagine it has been done, okay? You are still in, you're not even in first year. Let's imagine that you have already sent the publication. Now the publication is in your domain. It's in the domain of your supervisor. You have submitted it for review. So here you will ask yourself this question, whether you have committed submission fraud, right? So what constitutes submission fraud? If you communicate the same paper to two different journals at the same time, okay? So you cannot do that, right? Why can't we do that? It's our choice. We can send to 10 journals. You may argue, no, you should not. I'll tell you why. Because if you're sending your paper to two different journals at the same time, you're wasting the time of the reviewers, which is again an unethical practice, right? They'll take some time out of, they're not getting paid for this review. When the
What if they reject?
don't let them reject. Let them reject. Then you can send, right? I'm talking about papers which have still not been rejected, right? Your paper was given the MCN number, you decided to communicate it to two different journals at the same time, simultaneous submission, okay? I'm talking about simultaneous submission. So we should not go for simultaneous submission because because it's an unethical practice. All right. So when you are sending out these papers, you have to ask this question: what is there simultaneous submission to two journals? What should be the answer?
No.
You're saying no. You have to practice no too, right? Because in this process you are losing integrity because in I think I'm losing the mic. All right. So you are losing integrity because the journal editors would probably flag you, and now it's easier to flag because of AI. Okay, patterns can be checked, right? Patterns can be checked, so it's easier to flag these behaviors, right? And second thing is that we should not be wasting somebody else's time, right? We respect our time, right? Do we respect? Yes, we should respect our time. We expect respect from others, so we should also respect their time because they're not getting paid for these reviews. They are doing it as a social service, as a scientific responsibility. We have a term called as scientific social responsibility nowadays. Okay, we have corporate social responsibility. We also have a term, practice, which is called as scientific social responsibility. And when I decide to review somebody's paper, I'm not doing it for recognition, I'm not doing it for money, I'm doing it as a responsibility to check whether the things that are reported, they are reported in the proper manner. So you are not authorized to waste my time. Similarly, I am not authorized to waste somebody else's time. So if your answer to this question is yes, you should stop right there. You should not have indulged in this practice. What is the fraud? Simultaneous submission, right? Simultaneous submission. Okay. What do you understand by simultaneous submission? Submitting the same paper simultaneously, right? Fine. Then ethics of authorship. This is one area where we require a lot of work. Ethics of authorship. We have to decide who can be an author on a paper, right? Who can be an author on the paper? I'm asking this question. Some kind, as in. So anybody, the definition of an author is anybody who has made an intellectual contribution. Okay. Intellectual contribution means like has helped you design the work, has helped you analyze the data, has helped you help you in making the paper better. Researchers को SPSS नहीं पता तो कोई SPSS का help कर दे रहा है तो that can be a code. Sorry. For an example, SPSS का और statistical analysis. Okay, yeah. So a person, statistician, you are not aware of statistical practices. You are not aware of how you can use that. And if you're using, if you are taking help from a collaborator, the person can be a part of your authorship. So anybody who has made intellectual contribution can be a part of your authorship. But this is an area which is very gray. A lot of malpractices have been reported in the authorships. So we'll talk about all those factors later on. And finally, we also have to make a disclosure about conflict of interest. All right. Conflict of interest, we have to figure out honestly whether our observations have been objective, whether the reporting has been objective, whether we did not have any hidden interest while reporting the results. Hidden interests can be multiple. They can be personal, they can be financial, they can be professional, right? If somebody is paying you for writing testimonials, that is a conflict of interest. So having the conflict of interest is not always bad, but hiding the conflict of interest is unethical practice. So you can disclose your conflict of interest. In every publication, at the end, they would ask you a question whether you have conflict of interest. If you're hiding, then it's an unethical practice. If you're disclosing, then it's not an unethical practice at all. All right? Are these things clear to you? What's the time? Because I need to figure out whether we should go on. Oh, we still have a lot of time. At what time does it? 12:15. So somebody needs to, I have not kept the timer, so somebody needs to tell me. Because I can go on and on. Alright. So publication checklist summary is okay. On and on, I think I'm making sense. So I don't want to, talk nonsense. So am I making sense?
Yes, ma'am.
So publication checklist has to be there. This is something which you should go back today itself, print this checklist, make amendments, right? Make amendments to this checklist. Amendments means कि अपने inputs डालिए. If you feel कि ये वाला question भी होना चाहिए, maybe I'll not give you this exercise right away. I'll give you this exercise at the end of the lectures when we complete the course of Unit 2 and Unit 3. By that time, you'll be better trained to design the checklist for yourself. Isn't it? Fine. So this has to be handy all the time. So coming back to the steps, coming back to first step, your checklist, this was the first step in your checklist, wasn't it? Approval and consent. Is consent important?
Yes.
Who are we taking consent from?
Participants.
From the participants. Participants of the survey, participants of the study plan, maybe human subjects on whom you are working. Mostly for biomedical researchers, we may be taking samples, clinical samples from patients. So they need to know why we are taking their samples, they need to be educated, and it has to be an informed consent. Informed consent as in, they should be able to understand why we are acquiring a particular piece of work or sample from them. We cannot keep them unaware of all these things. So it has before taking the consent, we have to make them understand in the language that they understand, right? So if they do not understand English, we cannot take consent in English. It has to be in a language that those people understand, right? Ethics approval, informed consent and data confidentiality. And now another pertinent thing is about patients, right? Again, we come to patients, subjects, human subjects, whether they are part of your what do you say survey. Maybe some computer science professional may be designing an app where they require a lot of data related to a particular person. It can make the person vulnerable to identity theft and other things. So we have to follow guidelines for data confidentiality also. Like we are so many people here, our data is important, right? What kind of data? Everything. Our phone records, our bank records, our Aadhaar, all that is very, very important. So it has to be, that data confidentiality has to be maintained, right? So this data may be part of somebody's study, right? It may not be a part of maybe people from biology, but maybe somebody else is working on this kind of data. So we have to have right kind of structures which maintain the data confidentiality. Or let's take an official, hospital setting. We have the hospital management systems, right? Or let's talk about any corporate hospital. They maintain the data in the form of in the management system. So the management system has to be secure enough so that the data is not breached, right? Okay, it's a responsibility. So I'm talking about it because it's a responsibility of the people who are using the data, right? If we are giving our data to some agency, it's their responsibility to maintain the confidentiality of our data, right? So study design and ethical approval. Good research should be well justified, well planned, appropriately designed and ethically approved. Ethical approvals would mean for biologists, biosafety approvals. For people who are working on animals, they require ethical clearance from the animal regulatory bodies that talk about animal studies. Then we have human ethical clearance committees. Every university has at least these committees which give ethical clearance to the study. Which study? Dealing with animals, biosafety protocols, chemical safety, and human ethical clearance. What are the actions? Laboratory and clinical research should be driven by protocol. Protocol, like before starting the study, the protocols have to be approved. Okay. So all the implications as in implications on the environment, implications on the surroundings, implications on non-participants, those implications have to be evaluated before starting the study, actually starting the study, right? What is a protocol? Synopsis. Let's talk about synopsis. What is it? Now, what is it? That's okay. I mean, we are discussing it.
Study plan.
A study plan, right? It's a plan. You have not done it yet, no? But while you're designing this plan, you have to be mindful of what the implications could be, right? So, for somebody who is working on chemical waste, right? Let's assume that somebody is working on chemical waste treatment. So, a lot of waste might be going to the environment. So, we have to assess the environmental impact of this kind of study right in the beginning. And we have to take the clearance from right kind of bodies. That is why these clearance bodies are a part of research ecosystem of every good research institute as well as university. And I'm glad that we have it here from the last so many years. All right. So our medical research, our biological research, or research from the pharma department adheres to all the guidelines. So laboratory and clinical research should be driven by protocol. Pilot studies should have a written rationale. Okay, this is a requirement. Research protocols should seek to answer specific questions than to just collect data. Data collection is not just data collection is not your job. Okay. Yes, data collection is your primary part, but just accumulating data is not your only job. You have to make sense of that data, right? That is where you get differentiated from the personal and research scholars, right? A personal is expected to collect data. We do not expect a personal to kind of make sense of that data, right? We expect that from a research scholar. So your job is not just data collection. Your job is also to learn data analysis and to make sense of that data, right? PhD is a training program. You know, kya hai? It's a training. So what are you getting trained in? Oh, what is that? What do you understand?
We know
Coincides,
enhance our intellect about something.
Yeah, to enhance our understanding, to use that analysis, to build story on that data, right? Enough. To use this data as a building block for some other study, right? So you are constantly getting trained to think, to ask questions, right? And you have to challenge yourself in that manner, right? Because you'll be expected to think and address questions and ask questions. Why? So data collection is not your only job. Making sense of that data is also important, right? Research protocols should seek answers to specific questions, yeah, rather than just collect data. Protocols must be carefully agreed by all contributors and collaborators, including, if appropriate, the participants too, right? So whatever data we are collecting, the protocols must be carefully agreed upon. So all the stakeholders in a protocol, there would be multiple stakeholders. Who would be the stakeholders? Supervisor. The first author means somebody who will actually execute the work. Who is going to execute the work? Maybe a research scholar, right? Or maybe the PI himself or herself, right? Okay, or maybe some research assistant or a research fellow may be executing the work. So they all have to be on the same page. They need to have understanding of what they are designing. Right? So this requires time. This requires, some amount of calmness. Okay, you cannot be in a hurry all the time. You know? Okay, you cannot be in a hurry because you have an important job has been allocated to you. What is that important job? Thinking about your data, right? ओके सो आपके पास टाइम है कि नहीं है आपको टाइम निकालना पड़ेगा टाइम तो होना चाहिए because you have chosen this vocation right so you have to take out that time take it out we have 24 hours it's not like that we are busy all the time right if we feel like reading we'll find time for that fine announcement for
Alicia Sheikh.
Alicia is Alicia here there's nobody by the name of Alicia
उनका मोबाइल स्विच ऑफ करके घर पे कुछ इमरजेंसी है
oh is Alicia here Alicia ही नाम है नहीं आप पूछ लीजिए नाम तो नहीं गलत आपको पता है
अलीशा शेख नाम
so ask the Zaki साहब इन्होंने अटेंडेंस मार्क की है तो अगर अटेंडेंस मार्क हुई होगी तो वो यहीं पर है there is an announcement for Alicia Sheikh if she is here she may get in contact with Mr. Shakir all right so coming back to the class like we have been given this task of thinking so we have to find time for that it requires that is why we are talking about deliberation on every part protocols must be carefully agreed by all contributors and collaborators including if appropriate the participants right so your participant is not a mute spectator that participant also has some dignity. So if possible, we can have them as part of the study design, as part of the discussion. But in some settings, it may not be possible. But then as the contributors or the PIs of the study, we have to be mindful of their dignity. We have to be mindful of their data confidentiality. Right? That's a responsibility that is on us. The final protocol should be approved after relevant considerations. Early agreement on the precise roles of the contributors. See, mostly, why disputes start? Why do disputes start? In your mind, why do you think that a conflict starts?
There is no transparency.
Because there's no transparency. The culture, we don't have a transparent, open culture, right? Or the culture may be such that if it may be somebody's perception. It may not be true all the time. Like you may be fearful that whatever you are designing, somebody else may just scoop it, right? And may publish it even before you have started the work, right? That is what we want to break. We want to break that culture of theft, culture of embezzlement of ideas, right? Embezzlement, I mean, in a university, universities are expected to be hubs of ideas, creative ideas. But creative ideas only come after discussion, right? If we are fearful of open discussion, if we are, so constricted, if we are fearful, okay, like if I discuss this idea, if I'm always fearful that X, Y, and Z may, scoop the idea, I'll never be open. That is the culture we want to break. Okay. How can we break it? By having robust guidelines. Okay. So early on, whether we have a collaborator on the study, whether we have a co-author on the study, it's a good idea to have an early on agreement with all the parties so that their roles and responsibilities are chalked out very clearly. All right. So, for example, we have a study, we have designed a study where we require a contribution from a chemist. So, it will be totally chalked out that the chemistry portion that collaborator has to look after. We'll look after the other part. We'll be credit for contributions will be equally divided or will be divided as per the necessary contribution that the person has made. but these agreements have to be made right in the beginning of the study, right? Or if we are including a contributor maybe at the later stage, sometimes we require collaborators at the later stage. When we do research, we are going on an exploration mission, right? At the end of 4 years, we may have a data where we require collaborator from some other field. So we can add the collaborator then also, but we should have a clear understanding with the collaborator, right? So agreement होना बहुत जरूरी है. चलिए, maybe the agreement is not in that judicial, not judicial kind of agreement. It has to be an informed consent kind, where you have written to the person, you have talked about the nitty-gritties of the project, and the person has agreed that okay, I'm fine with being the collaborator on this part, right? I'll take care of 3 objectives, for example, right? People at the back, are you with me? Yeah, fine, thank you. Then statistical issues should be considered early in study design. Somebody was talking about having a collaborator from statistics, giving credit to the collaborator. It's an important aspect. Our results, our study design is useful only when it is statistically significant. So while designing the work, we have to be in touch with a statistician, or probably have the statistician on board to tell us what is the right kind of study design, how many samples are necessary, right, to have a significant, contribution. So that this thing means statistical evaluations have to be done right in the beginning of the study design. So you cannot start with 10 subjects. Why can't you start with 10 subjects? Why can't N be 10? And do you understand what is N? Sample size. So why can't it be 10? There is a minimum threshold of sample size, so you at least have to adhere to the minimum required threshold. If it is 10, then we'll go with 10. If it is 100, then we'll go with 100, right? But we may not be aware of these nitty-gritties. So who will tell us about all these things? The statistician. So we need to have a statistician on board, right? He or she has to be a part of our study design. Fine. Because we are PhD scholars, we have done PhD, but we are not experts in all fields. We have to accept that, right? We cannot work in isolation, right? I may be a molecular biologist, but I cannot work on mathematical models. If I have requirement of mathematical models, I'll consult a mathematician. Okay, fine. Formal and documented statistical issues should be considered early on in study design to ensure there are neither too few or nor too many participants. I talked about it. Formal and documented ethical approval from an appropriately constituted research ethics committee is required for all studies involving people, medical records, and anonymized human tissues. Some of it may not be relevant to many of you, but then you need to be aware. But some studies deal with people, surveys deal with people, customer behavior deals with people, so you also have to take ethical clearance. Use of human tissues in research should conform to the highest ethical standards, such as those recommended by the Newfield Council on Bioethics or ICMR guidelines. In India, we follow ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research guidelines. So whatever are their guidelines, we have to follow, right? So everybody would have a set of guidelines appropriate for their domain. So we need to have that understanding. At the end of 4 years, you cannot say, oh, I did not know, right? You cannot say that. It's better that you know, make yourself aware, right? Discuss with your supervisor. If the supervisor was busy enough, did not remember, okay, we had to take ethical clearance, your checklist will come in handy, right? Because in your checklist, you will mark, no, I have not taken the ethical clearance. So you will remember, okay, you will remember that, remember to remind your supervisor. It's not like that, but the thing is like it would be, in most of the settings, I have figured that it's the supervisor who reminds the research scholars, okay, you have forgotten this, isn't it? Some of the research scholars are agreeing, okay? No? Fine. So use of human tissues should conform to the highest ethical standards. Which guidelines are we going to follow? ICMR or UL? Then data analysis, I don't know, every time we put this presentation on this computer, there is havoc in the slides, but nevertheless, coming to data analysis part, data should be appropriately analyzed. But inappropriate analysis does not necessarily amount to misconduct. Okay, inappropriate analysis means, it may be because of your lack of understanding, it may be because of lack of application of mind, or probably you did not have enough time to reflect on your data, right? So we have to find time to reflect. Reflect. Do you understand reflect? Go through your data multiple times. See the patterns. Now it's so easy. No, in our times we used to sit with pen and paper and all that stuff. Used to make plots. Now it's so easy. You have everything under, on the click of your mouse. You can figure out patterns in your data, right? Okay. So reflect on that. Figure out why this particular trend is coming. What is the explanation for this trend? You would be getting some trend, na? Either the behavior would be changing or not changing, or would be static, something would be happening, isn't it? So reflect on your data. What is misconduct? Fabrication and falsification data. Fabrication and falsification of data constitutes misconduct. So when we talk about data, we are talking about three parts. Okay, what is data? Results. Results that you may get at the end of survey, you may get at the end of an experiment, you may get as an observational data, or you may be working on a retrospective study, so it may be meta-analysis data. So you will get some data points. So data itself has three steps: data collection, data reporting, and data analysis. Okay, data collection. Okay, so whether the data has been collected enough times. Like in biology, we at least conduct the experiment thrice to make an observation confidently. Okay, if we are getting the result, if we are getting the result independently three times, we'll report that result. If we are not getting the similar kind of trend after repeating the experiment thrice, we will try to figure out why it's not, following the trend. And, maybe there would be some other explanation. See, never miss out on outliers. Never miss out on outliers in your data. Some data may be off from your expected data, your expected outcome. हम एक mindset लेके चलते हैं ना. We, research in research, as a research scholar, you have to unlearn everything. You don't have to have a bias. You have to see your data as a new data every time. कभी भी उसमें पहले से ही judgment नहीं करना है. I hope I'm able to communicate what I'm trying to communicate. What am I trying to communicate? Like whatever your data collection has been, whatever the data points you have acquired, don't judge it through a prism. See, look at it independently, so that you will not miss out on any important observation. Why? Outliers have to be doubly checked, because sometimes we get good discoveries out of these outliers only.
Well,
Antibiotics.
what is the role? It will be the big role of intentions and the objectives of research,
Yes.
of data analysis basically.
Yes.
It will be depend totally upon the intentions basically.
Intentions, observations, and some rationale will be there. See, research research is logical, it's not random. We are logically building the story. So some points may not adhere to our story. They may adhere to our story indirectly, or they may be outliers completely. So those outliers, we should try to have some explanation why we are getting that result. It may not be a part of your true data set, but you should not ignore the outliers, is my suggestion, humble suggestion, because sometimes these negative results, the results which are not conforming to your hypothesis, they may lead to important observations later on. So for all this, you require time and peace. Okay, time and peace. So it has to be your passionate project. Your PhD thesis has to be your passion. All right. Okay. So put that effort. Fine. And I'm sure you put the right kind of effort which is required of you. So fabrication and falsification of the data. Fabrication. What do we understand by fabrication? Making up. I mean, somebody had to take data from 100 subjects. The person was lazy enough or was not ethical enough, decided, okay, I'll take data points for 50, and the rest of the 50 I'll extrapolate from the observations. So that is fabrication, right? And falsification is to hide outliers, to change the data, to change equipment records. Okay, but thankfully now it's very it's near to impossible to change equipment records. So thankfully, thanks to all the effort that ethical researchers in companies have delved into, now all the equipment, whether it's computers or whether it's high-end equipment, they come with the internal log. Okay, internal log means, like, if I have logged into a computer today, the record would be there. It would require a huge amount of manipulation to delete that record from the system, right? Similarly, if I have conducted a microscopy experiment, the record for that microscopy experiment would stay in the system. It will stay on the cloud. All right. So there's no way I can prove or disprove anything. If I have done that experiment, the record stays, right? If I have not done the experiment, obviously the record will not stay. So data collection, you have to have appropriate number of samples. Whatever is the requirement for proper collection of data for your particular thesis has to be followed. For example, I'll give an example of those people who have to harvest microbes from soil samples, right? For example, it's just an example I'm using. So if the soil sample has to be taken from a particular depth, or a particular part of the root, it has to be taken from there. You cannot superficially go and take a sample from a pot and then report, okay, these were the microbes that we have reported. If it requires you to take a sample from, say, 20 centimeters down the, at the root level, so you should do that. So data collection, data recording for everybody. In good institutes, research institutes in India, we have a practice of having digital notebooks. Okay, we have a practice of having digital notebooks. It's a very good practice, actually. It enhances the trust in our research, right? We don't have to, yell on the microphones, okay, we are, doing honest research. Why? Because the documents are there. Nobody will, nobody will question our results. Why? Because we have reported the data in real time. So the advantages of having digital notebooks, which notebooks am I talking about? Lab notebooks, the data recording notebooks. So I had talked about earlier that data consists of multiple steps. What were those? Data collection, data recording and data analysis, right? So in data recording, many good institutes have taken up this initiative of having digital notebooks. They have a timeline. After that, the digital notebook gets closed and you cannot make any edits in that. It's a good thing, right? You have reported your result, you get into a practice of reporting the result right there and then you don't have to worry about what the result was. And then you just have to focus on analysis of the result. In our setting, we are using the lab notebooks, like physical lab notebooks. So it's always a good practice to have a physical notebook which is numbered. It should have a embossed number. The pages should be numbered. Okay? So if you have 1 to 100 pages, none of the pages should be ripped off from the notebook. Fine? And you should have a practice of getting it signed by your supervisor at least once a month or twice a month, depending upon your own data recording and the time that your supervisor can give you. Fine? So data recording should have, your data recording notebook should be well recorded, should be numbered, indexed. Because your data recording notebook is not your property, it's the property of the institute. It stays with us for at least the next 10 years. You make your copy, you give one copy to the supervisor, right? For 10 years, we have to have the notebook at least for 10 years because somebody may want to see. And nowadays, the journals are asking for raw data. They're asking us for raw data, so we need to have a record of all the raw data. Fine? So data recording is important, data analysis is important. So most of the malpractices with data analysis are fabrication and falsification. So all sources and methods used to obtain and analyze data should be notified, including any electronic pre-processing should be fully disclosed. Detailed explanations should be provided for any exclusions. Methods of analysis should be explained in detail. This is again a very common practice. In papers, what generally the researchers do, they do not share the entire recipe as in the entire protocol. This is again a very bad practice that researchers follow because why should the other person make the equal, similar kind of effort in replicating the protocol? This is a published protocol. Okay, so it's a better idea to publish it with all the correct methods and correct reagents. Why? I don't know why people indulge in all these malpractices, but people tend to make life difficult for others. But it does not help anybody in the larger run. Okay. So if your protocol is a published protocol, the other lab which is using your protocol, citing your protocol, should be able to replicate it in their own setting. Okay. If I'm preparing biryani by a particular recipe, and if I'm sharing that recipe with you, you should be at least able to make some replica of that food, isn't it? Right? What is the point of having the entire process on YouTube and other stuff? Right? Similar is the process with methodology also. If I have reported a methodology, I should report it with all the modified portions. Okay. The discussion section of the paper should mention any issues of bias which have been considered and explain how they have been dealt with it and how the data has been interpreted. So discussion is the soul of your paper because you will be, while you're reporting your results, you would be discussing why you're getting those results and why you did not get some other type of result, right? So discussion is the soul of your paper. It has to be written in an unbiased manner. When I mean unbiased, you have to quote studies which are corroborating your results, and you also have to quote studies which are negating your results, right? Which are not in agreement with your results. You cannot only take those studies which are corroborating your result, right? Fine? So I think I'll take a break now. I'll stop now because I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. But I think the gist of today's class is that we have to follow ethics in every aspect of our research, right from the design to dissemination. We need to have a checklist. Okay, we need to have this checklist. I mean, I'm emphasizing on this again and again because this checklist is going to come in handy when you become independent researchers also. Okay. And I have told you that you have all the liberty to add whatever additional points you want to make. All right? Fine. Thank you for all your attention. And before we go offline, I would like to have a quick interaction with all of you. Please wait. I would want to have a quick interaction with all of the students. I just want to know your names and your department because this is, I like to have personalized interaction with my students. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon. Thanks. Please call Shakir so that he can go offline. So I hope everybody was able to make sense of what we were trying to address. Now we are a part of a very niche community. You and I are a part of a very niche community, the research community, right? That constitutes only uh, 2 to 10% of the entire world population. Okay, you can figure out, you can find out the statistics. You have all access to Google and other. Uh, Thank you. So we are part of this niche community. So हम बहुत ही कम लोग हैं. आपको तो दिख रहा है कि like यहाँ पर 100 लोग हैं यहाँ पर in the class, but we are a very small community. So the responsibility is also very huge. Fine. Okay. And we have to carry this responsibility. We cannot shun this responsibility because you will go down as teachers, as professors in your respective institutions. We don't want you to percolate a culture of falsehood, no matter how tempting it looks like. Poison also looks tempting. So would we consume that? No. We would not consume that. And we have to be strong enough not to consume it, right? हम शिव जी की तरह नहीं हैं, right? कि कितना भी पी लें and blue हो जाएंगे, नहीं. We are humans, so we have to have our own conscience for the sake of our future generations, right? अगर हमारे इस क्लास में 90% भी लोग मेरे से अग्री कर रहे होंगे तो that is a big gain that we have. अब स्कूल टीचर्स बनेंगे, प्रोफेसर्स बनेंगे, यूनिवर्सिटीज में रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट्स में जाएंगे, पॉलिसी एडवोकेट्स बनेंगे, मे बी इन्फ्लुएंसर्स बनेंगे, राइट? ऑलराइट, रिसर्च इन्फ्लुएंसर्स भी बन सकते हैं. दैट्स अगेन अनदर करियर दैट वी कैन फॉलो, राइट? So that's why I keep on telling you, keep your minds open. Don't get boxed in a particular traditional role. Why? We can be influencers also. What will we influence? We influence students to take science as a vocation, right? As a career. Why? So starting from you, your department, your name.
Sorry, my sex.
Okay, so first you need to be aware of your department. You are from biosciences, right? You are Adina. Fine. Okay.
Myself, Ujjwala Gaikwad. I'm from law department.
You from law. Lucky आप करेक्ट हो गए हाँ. Civil.
Samrat Advait from psychology.
Psychology. I was talking about psychology a lot because you use surveys, human subjects for surveys, so you also have to follow a lot of Ethical protocols.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Shansar Bed from Business Management.
Business management.
Myself, Divya Tiwari from Business Management.
Okay. I hope you will include all these principles in your studies because a lot of unethical practices are going on in your domain. Right? Yeah.
Manisha from education.
Manisha from education. Nice to meet you.
Janvi Segar from Education.
Okay. चलिए आज पहली क्लास है तो इस पे मैं कुछ कमेंट नहीं करूंगी कि आप सब अपने अपने लोग ही बैठे हैं सो आई वुड प्रिफर दैट यू मिंगल विद ईच अदर ऑलराइट तब तो इस क्लास का कुछ पर्पस होगा कि एजुकेशन वाले से बायोलॉजी वाला कुछ सीखे है ना या
आशीष कुमार त्रिपाठी बिजनेस
बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट
Myself, Eva Milgar from Department of Bioscience.
ऑलराइट
Myself, Snober from the Department of Bioscience.
यू थिंक कि मैम क्या नाम पूछ रहे हैं इनको याद तो नहीं रहेगा बट इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट ट्रस्ट मी नेक्स्ट टाइम आई कॉल यू बाय योर नेम्स
Myself, Hatsari Bangla from Education.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Janata Rahman from Department of Business Management.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Ma'am, I am Bushra Khan from Languages Department.
Ma'am, I am Tariq from Languages Department.
From
Languages Department.
Ma'am, I am Madam from Law.
no.
I am Kulsum from Psychology.
Shabnam from Department of Bioscience.
Shabnam from Economics.
Environmental sciences.
Economics.
Economics.
And myself, Navashri from Bioscience.
Anish Amanan from Bharsha.
Myself, Satya, I am from Bioscience. Lakshay, I am from Bioscience.
I am Jasmine Rathi from Department of Pharmacy.
You're from pharmacy. Okay, so a lot of stuff that I was talking today was applicable to you. Yeah,
Myself, Deveya Panma from Department of
physiology, medical college,
Madam Yasmin Verma from Education Department.
education. Yeah,
I am Elam Shah from Department of Mathematics.
mathematics. All right.
Myself, Sabakan from Mathematics.
Are you working in mathematics department? Mathematics department में काम कर रहे हैं? You just research college.
Myself, Sugar in the Department of
Medical anatomy. Fine.
And I am Fatima from Environmental Sciences.
Ruby Rizvi from Law Department. Myself, Shadya Farid from the Department of Languages English.
All right. Yeah.
Kulsum from Psychology.
Psychology.
Myself, Sabakar from Humanities History.
Okay.
Myself, Vijay with Department of Agriculture.
From agriculture.
My name is Budya from Political Science.
All science. Okay. So mathematics के collaborators मिल गए मुझे बाकी उनका मैं दिमाग में ना कैसे collaborate करते हैं economics.
My name is Asundra and I am from Department of Chemistry.
Okay. You're not audible, Zahid. Biosciences. Fine.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Hera. I am from Department of Business Management.
Myself, Vaishali Anand from
My name is Siddharth. I am from Department of Pharmacy and also
Thank you.
My name is Mukti. I am from
Engineering. Chaliye, thank you so much for letting me know your names and your departments, and I hope that for the next 2 weeks, we'll ponder about these problems and we'll try to address these problems in our own small way. And let us build a community of interactive researchers who are passionate, who are energetic. Let us see some more energy in the other classes to come. And I hope this cohort does not decrease. Okay? So जो आज बच्चे आए हैं वो कल भी मिलने चाहिए मुझे ये मेरा उम्मीद है नहीं मतलब this is a small bit that we can do for for advancement of good practices. That's all. This is my request. It's not an imposition. ठीक है? तो आप टाइम निकालिए अपने लिए टाइम निकालिए अपने स्टडीज के लिए टाइम निकालिए और बिंदास बी हैप्पी Thank you.